Hello. I really feel that running a regional news channel on the new CPRP basis lot of huge staff. They have to hire, I would say, a lot of HODs and all to compete with it. CPRP market should be, so CPRP shouldn't be considered in the regional news market.
Sorry, Angad, my point was not on
No, I'm not
CPRP.
saying, but I'm generally saying it on Shankarji's point.
Yeah.
He is actually answering my
No, I'm
question.
not-
We
Yeah,
have to
fair enough.
actually run the viral videos to increase the CPRP on the break markets and all that. And considering Punjab doesn't even get the corporate clients, Punjab regional channel. Most of them are covered by the national channels. So we have a huge problem for that.
No, I'm avoiding my first question because Jaggi had asked it in the last session on panel, so I don't want to repeat the same. And we've had enough gyan on panel and all that. So my next question, I think Kaur wants to take it. See, we are actually in a market today, we have this multi-device fragmented video consuming and all of that. Keeping those things in mind, is the measurement of today, LV, I think I'll start with you, is the measurement of today outdated, or stroke we as an industry, are we keeping up to pace with the change? And the second point, I guess we have, each one of us can take about 4 or 5 minutes. The second point is, okay, Niranjan is saying something. Second point is, what are the new measurement metrics, LB, should we as an industry expect in future? Quickly in 3 minutes.
Okay. If you ask me frankly whether the present measurement is in keeping pace with the changes in the industry happening in, obviously no, right? Purely because of the fact that audiences are moved on actually. Linear television is no longer the benchmark, and OTT platforms have come into play, streaming has come into play in a big way. For example, we get data from around 3 lakh hybrid set-top boxes actually, okay? 300,000 hybrid set-top boxes spread across the entire country. And what we see is 50% depletion of time spent. Reach is still there for linear television. 50% depletion of time spent on linear content. And where is that 50% going to, the time spent going to? Actually, it's going into the OTT segment actually, or to the streaming segment. Okay? The overall consumption of television or content, not television, content in the home has jumped up by 30% actually. Okay? So video as a platform has terrific future actually, super future. Okay? News within that is an extensively high future actually. Okay? Short form of video. Okay? But where is it going to? From linear to streaming. And in streaming, short form video is taking shape in a big way actually. So what is happening is 2 phenomena are happening. One, the idiot box, which we used to call the television as an idiot box actually, is now a smart box or intelligent box because it's doing everything for you actually. And second, we always call television as a family television actually, right? Family device. It's becoming more personal device actually. When I say personal device, in the prime time, the audience who is watching it, which used to be around 3.5 to 4 members per home, is actually reduced around 2 to 2.5 members actually. The rest 2 members are in front of television set, but not watching television. It's on other devices actually. So therefore, if one were to look at the future actually of television as a platform, question mark. But television as an evolved video platform, great actually. Because there are going to be other devices that are going to compete with television as a screen. Now if I come down to the metric level, that's where things are changing. Okay? You need to move beyond what you're now calling it as a CPRP actually. Okay? Or what is just as a rating. That's a base actually. Okay? Build on top of it. Okay? We have been working on certain amount of data coming up from a metric called attention. I don't know whether I can project one or two slides on the screen actually for everybody to have a look at it. Yeah. So this is an attention device actually. Okay? Now what it does is, if you go to the next slide, the problem today that you're facing in hand, if you roll into the next slide. Yeah. The problem that you face today is the fact that the device that is there, which is giving you ratings, is giving you ratings with respect to, at the best, what is getting watched in the home. Okay. And then it requires an additional equipment to know who is watching it actually. Okay. But yet you don't know whether the attention is on the screen or not actually. This is what Barun called it actually, sometime back in the panel, called impact ratings for news actually. Can you actually get impact ratings for news? Okay. If you go to the next slide. Yeah, next slide. If you look at this, okay, this is a technology that actually catches attention of the audiences onto the eyes actually, into the screen. Which means the fact that when we experimented within 2 markets in India, there were 2 content which actually had a high impact score. Okay, which means that more attention being given to the content on the screen, which was news, and live sports. They had a much more better attention than what general entertainment content or probably even music content or movie content actually had on the screen. So this is exactly what I think Barun was indicating towards Park, to say the fact that can you upgrade from a basic level, vanilla level rating number to a impact level rating number. Okay. That allows for news to gauge the fact that if I'm getting better attention, even at a low rating level actually, that means the fact that the audience is more engaged than just actually giving you reach or OTS numbers actually. So this equipment is actually installed along with the television meter. Okay, or we do it in the RPD box actually, the return part data box. And we collect information on not just television viewing through the RPD box or the set-top box, but we pick up information related to where the eyeball is actually attended to. So that's why when I said the fact that television screen has moved from a family to a personal level, it's because this data indicates the fact that there are 4.5 people who were watching television earlier is now only 2.5 people watching attention on television. The rest 2 are watching other devices in nature. So your metric itself is now moving from reach and frequency to actually attention. And from attention, because you're also on devices along with it, you can actually track e-purchases too actually. So click-throughs and e-purchases can be the next area that can be tracked too.
Yeah. So I'm not in disagreement with LV after 22 years. The point that I wanted to make here is this entire debate about CPRP, about 50,000 people meters, we need to go beyond that. It's 22 years in the same debate. If you look at, I'm throwing in very ballpark numbers, the catch is on consumption of content, which according to me as well, the data that's come here is exponentially shot up. In our terms, it's more than 30%, it's almost 50%. So what is changing is the medium of consumption, right? So from cable you're moving to OTT or you're moving internet, but as far as content is concerned, it is only growing. Now the point I'm trying to make, which should be of interest to most of the media owners here, Karthik, Barun, the fact is that the effective rates today are mostly getting determined by representing 161 million cable and satellite homes. Whereas almost 50% of the viewership now is coming out of digital homes, out of OTT, out of browser consumptions, out of your own apps, or out of your content on YouTube, which is not represented. There are broadcasters already using the data for their internal purposes and for selling purposes, which is the incremental data. So if you're operating at an effective rate of 2,000 bucks, you should actually be getting 3,000 rupees because of the additional reach coming out. To you as well. To you, Narayanan. So,
Noted.
yeah, so the point is that the content is actually grown, the medium of how it's grown is changed. If you look at broadly global numbers now, and if you look at the digital market, which is almost hitting about $500 billion, and India, going by the population numbers, so we are looking at almost 1.4 billion out of 8 billion people, that's 20%. So 20% of $500 billion, you are looking at $100 billion revenue out of the industry. Usme se discount another 20% because we are poor, we are developing, all of that. So look at about some $80 billion, and half of that comes to, even if you take 50% of that of television, that's $40 billion against the existing number of, I think, some $10 billion. So I think there's a huge potential. The mistake that we are doing is, you know, we are battling amongst ourselves, trying to prove that I'm better than you or you are better than me, whereas the reality lies that the entire methodology itself is belittling the numbers. And the true numbers are much, much higher, is what I would say. So I really, really think that your overall top line should be definitely at least 50% of what they are, higher than what, 50% higher than what they are, going by both global numbers and the incremental reach, which is not being reported right now. Which is
Shankarji, I
there.
feel some member channels would also like
Yeah,
to
yeah,
speak.
quickly.
No, some from the audience.
Hi, Shankar. This is especially for LV. In the age of digital consumption where algorithms and data and analytics are slicing and dicing the data far more effectively for the advertisers and in multiple ways, how relevant does these television rating mechanisms stay, including yours? Because, you know, you are really trying very hard to actually deduce it to a conclusion with your methodology. In that case, everything is deduced per se, per click, per visit, and so on and so forth. So what is the future? I mean, you know, we already have these solutions like what he's saying. It's already there. So why do we need to replicate it at all?
It's not replication actually. You're adding. Okay. Yeah, I think I was mentioning in the first question, I was mentioning about this case of last discussion that happened on Manipur actually. Okay. That BARC may not have enough sample representation in Manipur to represent the audiences over there. But we know the fact that 100% of Manipur homes are digitally connected either from a set-top box or through the mobile devices actually. Okay. We work with a couple of platform owners on set-top boxes. I'm talking about, when I talked about this data, I'm talking about 300,000 homes actually, data coming in from where segregation is happening to understand what is the behavior patterns are given out. So when you have around 100,000 homes of Manipur getting completely taken away by return path data, which is 1/10 of the cost of investment of even 10,000 people meters in that particular market actually, why not use it actually? Okay. It just requires a middleware in those boxes to upgrade that. At the end of the day, news is all about local, regional, hyper-local in nature. And if you want those advertisers to come into play and not be on any other genres actually, the data from these kind of devices can actually give you much more interesting thought than actually having a cost of implementing a panel with high sophistication new boxes put into play.
But you would agree that it's limited to the television screen only and it's driving the data?
No, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that actually. So what happens is when you do cross-screen measurement actually, for example, the first cross-screen on audio, we are working on it to release it next year actually, early next year, which will give you indication between radio stations listened on FM with streaming stations being listened on mobile actually, together in nature. Okay. So what it gives you therefore is an amplification of consumption pattern between two devices, and it can go beyond two devices as more devices enter. For example, connected TV. Okay. So the minute the connected TV coming in and smart boxes goes off actually, set-top boxes goes off, it's picking up data from the connected TV and adjoining it with the mobile content and checking out what exactly is the behavior pattern.
So pardon my ignorance, I need to ask another one because so all you're talking about is how to measure linearity of content. Ultimately, it all boils down to what is the viewership when content is streamed in a linear manner.
No.
And that is the focus, right? Is that what you're saying?
No. What is getting viewed by the customer, whether linear or non-linear, it's a video consumption actually. It removes linearity and non-linearity out of the box completely. It's just video consumption whether it's going to be on YouTube, the consumption is, or whether it's through the cable operator or the DTH or the connected TV part of it actually.
So all across platforms, it will report it as and when. So it's not at a particular point in time, it's an ongoing process.
Exactly, exactly.
कार्तिक इसमें
I
दो
think
चीज और हैं.
we've
Just two more things from our limited experience.
Pankaj, quickly in
Just a
120
quick one.
seconds.
Yeah. Anything which comes to a panel, right, has its own limitations. The moment you open it and democratize it and it runs into millions, the data is much more accurate. If you look at any form of measurement basis iOS, it's all blocked. And if you look at anything on Android, Google is monopolistic. So you'll crack some kind of a technology, in 3 months it's gone. The only thing that is working now across almost 1 million respondents, the incremental reach that I spoke of, is mostly a hybrid model. Hybrid model mane, you can gauge the platform on a mobile phone in terms of which application is running on the front or on a smart TV. And to understand the content, what was watched, either linear or recorded, that is mostly survey based. And the chances of someone lying are low. So once you extrapolate that to 1 million, that should answer and gives you a hybrid model of consumption across all platforms, linear, recorded, and with a sample which is huge. And it can run into millions and millions, like the RD model, the Reader's Digest model, where you have people just enrolling and just, pressing a button every day, and you have like 10 million participants. So that could be a much more robust model.
Great. So I think we will wind up this with Sashi. 120 seconds.
Yeah. So as consumption is going hybrid, I think measurement needs to go hybrid as well. So you will see increasingly, use of sensors, AI algorithms to come up with new metrics. For example, just like attention, why not measure trust, right? When news breaks, which is your most trusted source that you tune into? How do you measure that? Also with new technologies like 5G broadcasting, your broadcast stream itself could become measurable, just like internet streaming, right? So all these are new possibilities. So definitely the future of measurement will see much more hybrid methods using sensors, AI, and new technologies like 5G broadcast.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for a great session. Over to you, Niranjan.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shankar. Thank you, Shankar, for that. Thank you, Mr. Shashi Vempati. Thank you, Mr. Hari Krishnan. Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you, Mr. Narayan. And thank you, Angad. Ladies and gentlemen, up next is a panel lined up to discuss the future of TV and digital media. Technology has enabled the merger of linear and non-linear platforms, and convergence is the order of the day. But will it lead to monopolies originated by deep pocket players, domestic and globally? While that is a matter of worry, it's heartening to note that digital play has given rise to new age media entrepreneurship and innovation. New formats are on the anvil and storytelling has got a new lease of life. Is the way forward for converged entities or standalone digital products? Now, many of us know that it's not just TV, but we rely on a digital future as well. Here's a short audio-visual, and then we have a keynote address. Over 700 million internet users, the advent of 5G technology. The technological foundation of Indian news is evolving. A churn like never before is on. Digital cannot be divorced from broadcast anymore. We are at the precipice of a tri-junction of impeccable journalism, world-class packaging, and next-in-class technology. Now on the NBF Future Conclave, gear up for an unmissable discussion on the future of news, the TV plus digital future. And to set the context for this panel, may I invite on stage Mr. Vikram Sahai, who is the Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, also an IRS officer of the 1992 cadre. Mr. Vikram Sahai, if I can request you to give us a short keynote address, sir, from the podium, sir. Stage is yours, Mr. Sahai.
Good afternoon, everybody, and let me thank the NBF for having invited me and to share my thoughts on the future of news, TV and digital for this very distinguished audience. I'm very happy that the NBF has organized this national conclave, and especially having called the channels of the vernacular languages, because vernacular languages hold a very, very important space. in this very diverse linguistic population that we have. And I think with the wide viewership they have, they are no less important than the news channels, English news channels, in fact more they are. Well, it's been a pity that over the last 2 years, we have not been able to have such large gatherings and meet in such large scale because of the widespread pandemic. And even though the problem is far from over, I think it's been a real magic and marvel how we have been able to overcome it with the grit and determination of the government and the foresightedness. And I think the great work which our frontline workers, doctors, paramedics all have done, the scientists and pharmaceuticals, and the vaccination drive which has been almost unparalleled internationally. And here I would say the role of the media was very, very important. It was not far back when the United Nations had said that this is like an infodemic, the type of fake news which is spreading around pandemic. And while the government took very good swift steps for that, I think the media played a very, very important role in trying to ensure that the news which is going on to the people about a disease which was very less known, very less heard of, was the correct, factually correct and balanced. And while the ministry did, I remember I would talk to people at 10 p.m. in the night, tell them this is the decision, please convey to the people. And that is how the media played a very, very important role. And kudos to all of you who are here for having been so responsible during real difficult times which this country faced. Well, I must say in both crisis times and good times, the television and print are here to stay and stay for long. While there is a discernible shift towards digital media, and all of us are aware of that because of the powered by technology, but to a very large extent, the good news that is coming on traditional TV platforms, on newsprint, the same thing is going on the digital version. So the chunk of good news, the chunk of the balanced news, whether it's on digital also, it is coming from the traditional media platforms. And therefore, even though there is a mushrooming of the standalone digital news outlets on the intermediary platforms like YouTube, etc., I think the responsibility and the credibility of the traditional news platforms stands intact. And in times to come, their responsibility would grow even further. Today I read in the newspapers, there was a report by the CSDS, the Center for Studies on Developing Societies. They had done a survey, and they said that maximum news consumption of people in this country is from the television news channels. And they also said that Doordarshan was most trustworthy. So we felt happy about it. That is not to take away anything from the private news channels. The issue of these mushrooming of news outlets, digital news platforms, and whether it is causing any threat to the traditional news platforms. The last few years, we also saw a lot of journalists who are working in these news platforms, in the traditional news platforms, fanning out and starting their own news portals. And I think if somebody with years of experience of good journalism, if he goes into a digital platform, he will be as good as he was on a traditional news platform. A good journalist is a good journalist, irrespective of the platform on which he is. So I think the challenge is to continue with the good content, irrespective of the platform where you are. Well, we in the ministry have always tried to do this balancing act between what we have, the constitutional rights of freedom of speech and expression, and the type of reasonable restrictions in the form of self-discipline, which we always talk about self-discipline, through various code of ethics, whether it is on print or television or digital. And this balancing act has led to a situation where we developed this three-tier regulatory mechanism. And I must compliment the NBF. NBF was among the first to reach out to the Government of India, to the ministry, and say, yes, we want to register ourselves both for the three-tier mechanism of television and the three-tier mechanism of digital media. And that reaching out by NBF said two things. Number one, not only to the government but to the citizens of the country, that we believe in law, we uphold the law, we respect the law, and we value the citizens' views. That is the message which NBF gave, and we are thankful to them for having done that. Well, a few things which we have done, I won't really spend too much time on that. The fact check unit which has been there in the Press Information Bureau. One new thing which we have brought, and I think I must talk about it, is there is a research unit which we have developed. Research unit which is manned by young professionals. They are people who have degrees in journalism, they have experience of journalism, and they have hand out together as a team, and we are trying to develop some authentic documents on various aspects of how government functions on various sectors, socio-economic, health sectors, and these documents are then placed for the media to take advantage of. And I must say that a large number of stories which media is carrying is fanning out of these documents which this PIB research unit is doing. About 400 more documents have been prepared, so I will urge upon you, all of you, just go through that PIB website, see these documents. These documents could be quite useful in preparing authentic and balanced information and reaching out to the people of this country. Well, we all know that for you, for any industry, commercial considerations are important. You're there for business. But while it is possible to say that, well, that can be the only consideration as far as certain entities are concerned, you stand out as a different profession. Because what you are producing and what people are consuming has externalities. It is not enough to say that we have a news, but that whatever you are speaking over TV debates, over news, whatever you are telling about to the people, that shapes minds, that influences people, that shapes career. So there is a large externality, and therefore the very, very important aspect of responsible journalism, I think I don't have to talk about it, all of you are quite aware of it. And all I can say is that we had to take some very decisive steps. It was a matter of real shame. Over the last few months, you might have heard or you might have read in the newspapers and television channels. It was a matter of shame, and we were constrained to block a few news channels. That was something which we had to do as a drastic step to ensure that news which is palpably anti-national, fake and frivolous needs to be blocked, needs to be curbed. And more shameful was an observation that these channels had large viewership. So in a way, the good content was being driven out by bad content. That is the real challenge. How do we ensure that the good content gets a good viewership, a large viewership? And there's a behavioral change which is required. Why should people watch bad content over good content? Why should people watch fake content over genuine content? So there is a behavioral change pattern required, but at the same time, as long as the good content is there, TV will continue and TV will prosper. Thank you so much once again for having invited me. Thank you.
We request you, Mr. Sai, to please take your seat on the stage. You're part, of course, of the next special panel discussion. We are going to be looking now at the future of news, the TV and digital future. Yes, everyone is talking about the digital medium. Is that really the future of news? We will be talking more about that in the next panel, Krishna.
That's right, and for that fascinating panel, let me call upon the people who are going to be on stage, apart from Mr. Vikram Sahai. I'm going to invite Mr. Manoj Gairola of News Nation to please come on stage. Ms. Litisha Panda, Business Development Officer of OTV, to please come on stage. And we are also inviting Mr. Uday Reddy, the founder and CEO of Yup TV.